Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Bxb'S bonus babble. I've lost my motherfucking mind at this point, and this is episode, I can't even remember, 16?
I think it's 16. It was 15
16?
yesterday, I'm sure.
Episode 16 of Bxb'S bonus babble with your host, Braindead Ben, and Jovial Joel, as with me once again, full of the joys of E3.
I think, yeah, I'm kind of like, yes, that's it. This is the last. That's it. All the press conferences are out of the way now. That's why I'm beginning to pick up a bit again. Last night was a bit like, oh.
And I just think to myself, right, it feels like work for us. Imagine what it must feel like if you're there doing it, like for real. Jesus. I mean, like, I've just so much diversity this year in how things have been presented. I remember years where everybody had a theater and everybody came out on a stage and they'd do little bits and then they'd have a little bit of financial talk and then they'd have the CEO out doing a bit and then they'd have some gameplay on the stage, which would invariably not work, and they'd have a few announcements, and that was it. And that's how they all did it. That's how everybody did it. And this year we've got everything from that type of presentation, but with less financials, through to bare bones streams, through to canned videos and comedy skits, and basically, from what the report seemed to indicate, was like a theme park experience for the people at Sony, though it didn't necessarily play that well for us watching at home. So I mean, it was like all that shitty pre-show, right, you'd normally get before one of the conferences happened like in the middle, after the first third of the Sony one, which was really strange way of killing your momentum after showing what was quite a no, not quite, an incredibly violent and fairly disturbing trailer for Last of Us Part 2.
Savage, wasn't it?
Just really, like, they're really going for that, aren't they?
Oh yeah,
on that one. I thought I liked the framing device, like showing the savagery cut around, like that moment of simple beauty of Ellie trying to be like normal and fall in love and have all of that and have a life, and then the reality being, no, she's got to murder and just be vicious to survive. Just horrible savagery, like you said. Yeah, so that was quite. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that game at this point. I really don't. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's going to work, because everything they've shown so far is so brutal that it seems to have lost that emotional core that sort of sustained the previous game. I don't know. What did you think?
So my first thoughts were it started with some cinematics. It had the kiss, and then it went into this really savage sort of, yeah, like you say, brutal, like very violent. Like just the initial her just stabbing that guy in the neck like twice as well. It just feel, ooh, yeah, really, really well done. But as it, you know, that's when it switched to gameplay, and they sort of showed you a good few minutes of just playing through this sequence in this game, trying to escape from these people, getting cornered in like what looked like a wrecked sort of corner shop or something, and then trying to escape again. And you know what? I was technically, if that's what the gameplay is actually like, because that did look like proper gameplay footage, and just some of the moments in there where she's getting, getting pushed aside and then seeming to react to the sort of objects and items shelving and stuff, and then like where she was just killing these people, hitting them with the arrows, everything just seemed to go in so well, and people dropping their weapons as she killed them. It just seemed to flow like it was cinematic, but it looked like it was gameplay. And if that is gameplay, that is truly staggeringly impressive.
I think it was a very specific way that was. I feel like that encounter was a genuine encounter, but I feel like it was on like a well-practiced run on a harder difficulty with not a lot of crafting supplies to like ramp up the tension. But I feel it was genuine. Yeah, I feel like it was canned. It's a very carefully chosen, practiced moment. But I do feel, yeah, you could probably play that in the game. There were moments like that in the first game, but I didn't play it on the hardest difficulty setting, and I scavenged everything, so I felt like I was probably more prepared. What I seem to be, what's interesting is, you remember The Last of Us was all about fucking plant zombies. fungal zombies, and they seem to be nowhere involved with part 2 so far. You know, we've still got obviously the big question mark of where's Joel. He was alluded to in this trailer, but he wasn't present. Obviously, you know, it's another case, strong female-led video game, which is really, really cool. And another woman doing a lot of neck stabbing, like we had with Lara at Square Enix. It seems to be the favorite point of where to place your knife in current games. But yeah, it was just, I just wonder if the tone will be there. I mean, maybe they're just being really careful and keeping all of those interesting beats to the close to their chest, because they don't want to spoil that experience. And I feel like if any developer was going to do that, I feel like Naughty Dog probably would be the ones that were being very conscious of, you know, keeping their story tight and quiet prior to release. So you know, I'll play it. I'm still up for it, no doubt.
Oh, I think it looked. I thought that looked really good. I just like the way they did the presentation as well. There was a nice bit of cinematic there, followed by just a long piece of gameplay, so you could kind of really build up an opinion and feel of what the game was going to be. So I was really happy with the way they went around it.
And it definitely looked like The Last of Us, you know, and it looked like they hadn't changed it like completely, but they'd refined mechanics, and like you said, they'd made it even more sort of cinematic and felt even more realistic. That, you know, an interactive film almost. It looked incredible, like, but you know, with full control. By the way, my notes, I don't think they're in order, but I don't know if so we then had this like really long intermission after this first presentation at Sony.
Well, I think they move everybody from one theater to another.
Yes. Yeah. So it was from this like school hall type church thing that they constructed for The Last of Us, which I think was probably because that's where the cinematic was set. It was sort of in that similar environment,
like a church dance or something.
Yeah. And then they all went to a massive auditorium with a ginormous screen, with this giant wide screen that looked incredible, like IMAX times 10. You know, really impressive looking technology. And then they showed Ghost of Tsushima.
You've skipped a few things, but you've skipped loads of crap that's not even worth talking about.
Is it all like lots of little stuff? I think I'll come back to that, because in the order I've grabbed these trailers and stuff is the order I'm going through now. We'll cycle back and we'll do the thing at the end, Joe. If you think I've missed anything, give me a shout. But let's hit up Ghost of Tsushima. This game looks like the guys at Sucker Punch played a lot of The Witcher and thought, where can we set this that doesn't feel like we're just ripping off The Witcher? So let's do the Mongol invasion of feudal Japan, because that's far enough away from the Eastern European set of The Witcher. Did you not get the strongest Witcher vibes from that?
No, I actually put Samurai Assassin's Creed down as the vibe. I was beginning to feel it. Not so vertical. He didn't climb up that much stuff, but yeah, that's the kind of game it looked like to me.
For me, it was The Witcher because it felt it had that like hefty, darker, mature vibe to it, whereas Assassin's Creed comes across quite light and accessible in comparison. This looked amazing. Like, wow, some of the effects on the grasses and the fields, of the wind blowing through it, and the environmental design looked fantastic, and the character models were all really high poly. And I like the fact that it seemed to have so it's samurai combat, and it's like, well, how do you do that? And they actually did it in quite a cool way, which conveyed the kind of insta kill ability of samurai, where sometimes they'll just get a really good sword strike, you know, and that dude's done in one go. Like, no counters, no fight, no back and forth. He's dead. He's just dead. That's, you know, they're heavily inspired by the Kurosawa movies and things like that, heavily inspired by the wushu stuff as well, and things like that. You know, very cinematic in its approach and its style. It looks cool, man.
I love the way. Did you notice how after nearly each kill, he would wipe his sword?
Yep.
On his sleeve. I love that little touch.
It's really cool. All of that, it felt very authentic. It felt very you know, authentic in the way that I've never lived in feudal Japan. I've seen cinema based in feudal Japan. It feels authentic to that, I should say. You know, and it felt like it had a heft and a maturity to it. that could be really compelling stuff. So I'm well over that. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, I've just realized my rundown. I'm hitting the big 4 announcements first, and then we'll come back to the smaller stuff. It looks like how I've done this. But now and then, I mean, anything you want to add about Ghost?
Not really. No, it was a bit. I found and it's kind of a common theme through Sony's presentation. They seem to have people just sat playing music for about 5 minutes before, I guess, trying to build up some atmosphere or set the scene or tone before they showed these trailers. I just sat there kind of like, yeah, skip.
Well, imagine if you were actually sat in the audience, like you'd be just like, tedium would be extreme. You know, that makes Andrew WK and that Grant Kirkhope stuff from last night seem all the more exciting, didn't it? When you got a dude on some kind of weird bamboo flute. And you know, the only thing I could think of when I saw that guy was like, you couldn't find an Asian to do this. Just, you don't think it was slightly inappropriate that you got this guy dressed up in full Asian garb with the sandals and the hat and everything, and yet he's a really white dude.
Yeah, when they zoomed in close, you're like, oh, right. Is he going to turn out? I thought he might be one of the devs or start talking about the game once.
No, he's just some session musician. Yeah. You know, they're in LA, aren't they? So some session muso that they got for a few $100 for the show, I'd imagine. You know, can you play weird bamboo flute? Yeah, man, sure. No worries.
Picked him up down the local subway.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I just thought it was funny. But yeah, so doing the big ones. We got a big blowout and potentially gameplay from Death Stranding. And I mean, when I say gameplay, it was like, you remember those scenes in the Lord of the Rings where they just walked a lot? That's what it was. That was the gameplay. He delivers things. So Norman Reedus' character delivers things, and the gameplay consisted of him walking across beautiful vistas heavily inspired by Iceland. Beautiful vistas, lots of like going through water, up mountains, you know, big screes of debris and all kinds of this, really conveying a sense of place and otherness to this location that they're setting this in, with just boxes on his back. Occasionally there'd be like a small box, and then there'd be like shit tons of boxes, and he's carrying boxes. And then one time there seemed to be a person that had been like wrapped up like a dead body on his back, and he's just walking around with shit, carrying shit. I mean that's what we got as gameplay. It didn't really tell us anything, did it?
No, I can read my notes. It's just like, yeah, lots of walking, a bit more walking, some climbing. Oh, he's scrambling a bit now. Oh, there's a bit of wading, back to walking. Oh, he's doing some real climbing now. Oh, back to walking. It's just, and then yeah, I've got like, you know, there was these little robots following him at times, and yeah, I picked up he had a corpse on his back at one point.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Yeah, like wrapped up all in like, you know.
So that obviously all looked like in-game, in-engine footage, but yeah. It's
do you know what it looked like? It looked like an animation test, Joel. It looked like they'd rigged up the environments. They had his character model done, and they rigged him up. And it was like, well, let's test it. Let's see what it's like carrying different weights and how well he does going up the different, you know, environments and stuff, and how the character model reacts and stuff. That's what it looked like. It was like an animation test. But I mean, it probably was. I mean, that's still got to be 2 or 3 years out, hasn't it? I mean, let's be honest. And then we got another cinematic trailer, and it's just like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah,
what is this game?
So, hold on, I have an idea. Okay, so wait, you've got a fetus, and now what? You're going out with your possession scanner or something? With this, yeah, okay.
I like the bit where I like the bit where the new lady in the trailer, they keep seemingly hiring people from TV and movies to be in this game. I like the bit where she ate and seemed to really enjoy eating some kind of bug that protected her or something. But it was just like, well, what is this? Does he even know? Does Kojima even know what it is? Like, or is he just like coming up with the maddest ideas? And
I bet his subconscious or his unconscious mind might know, but it does. Yeah, I mean, it looked beautiful.
Yes,
visually. But yeah, I agree with you. I still don't really know what it is.
I mean, it almost like it's like making a game from your dream diary. You know, disconnected, concepts and vistas and characters that don't have a real outline as to what they are in, because he's creating, and I love it. If this comes together, it'd be amazing. He's creating a completely unique universe, right? So it has its own rules, but he's not explaining the rules to you in these trailers, which is why it doesn't make sense. But clearly, hopefully, I should say, not clearly, what you'd hope it is that it will make sense within the internal logic of the setting when we understand it. And it feels like that's what he's getting at. And he's, making these evocative cinematics that certainly keep you interested. You can't argue with that, So I look forward to the next cinematic.
Still no release date or anything either. So
don't be silly. Don't be silly. When it's done. We also did the fourth of the big four things they showed was a ton of gameplay for Marvel's Spider-Man, which is the big other exclusive. Right. So Death Stranding is an exclusive. Spidey's an exclusive. I can't say if I'm sure about Ghost or not. But I feel like it must be, because Last of Us is definitely an exclusive.
I swear, didn't the trailer start with Sony Interactive Entertainment, which makes me think it was exclusive, and obviously The Last of Us as well is. So
yeah, so I would have thought so then. So Spider-Man was interesting. So this was a demo focused heavily on combat, and more like normal combat rather than the big cinematic combat we've seen in previous trailers. However, it was all like dark and dingy. It made me think of Arkham combat from Batman, which is strange because Spider-Man is meant to be a much lighter kind of character, especially the way that fucking trailer ends with him defeated and beaten by the villains on top of this tower. And you're like, and then they reveal who's behind it, but they don't show you. I like that as a framing device. I'm certainly intrigued as to who has brought these villains together to fight him, and he seemed very surprised by it. I mean, the obvious one would be Norman, the Goblin, his arch nemesis of many decades. But it's cool that we now realize that Mr. Negative isn't the main dude. He's just one of these kind of villains that seem to be working somewhere else. Because when Mr. Negative got showed off in the previous trailers as like the big villain, I was like, really? That's a bit underwhelming, I have to say. So I'm glad there's something bigger going on. The combat looked good. The animation and the graphics all look very nice, didn't they? What did you think of Spidey?
So a big fan of the combat in the Arkham games. And obviously, you get the same combat system in Shadow of Mordor, but it didn't feel that much different to Arkham. Now, this looked actually like a lot different. Spidey did, to me, I thought he had a much more huge jumping range. He could sort of float in midair and do some cool extra moves and stuff. So it did look quite a bit different. Rather than having the sort of Y counter prompt that would appear above Batman's head, you could see a lot of spider sense flicking every time you're obviously supposed to dodge and move around and stuff. So I thought it genuinely looked like a good improvement on the sort of standard free flow combat that we've had from both the Batman and the Shadow of War game. So I actually thought that looked quite cool. It's got me intrigued and interested. If the game, if there's lots of that combat and it's quite fun and there's a nice plot driving it along, I think I could be pretty interested in that, to be honest.
I've seen some other footage from the game that wasn't shown at that conference subsequently, with him web slinging around New York and doing more of those kind of like open worldy type missions. And what I really like the look of as well, and it did show up in this trailer as well, was the use of the webs in combat. So there's a lot of restraining bad guys using webs in different ways, on walls, on the floor, on the ceiling, things like that. So I thought, that's definitely made you think Spider-Man. He's got a quite unique moveset when you think about it, and they do seem to be really going for that. And once again, it's the right studio for the job with an Insomniac. They've got a pedigree for these type of games, so it's a great license for them. And I'd be very surprised if it's anything other than a very accomplished Spider-Man game, to be honest. I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Yeah, thinking about it back now that we're talking about it, what summed it up for me, I think, in Arkham Asylum and Arkham City and also in Shadow of Mordor, you used to get the enemies with the big shields. And the only thing you could ever really do was just jump over them and attack them from behind. In this one, you straight away, because I saw them coming up, I was like, oh, there's that type of enemy. Straight away, Spider-Man just uses his web, pulls the shield, and then swings the shield 360 around and smashes loads of them.
And hits them all,
like, yeah, great. That looks like there's a lot more options and choice here. So
yeah, it's a very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. Now we're going to circle back to some of the smaller games that came out from this show. Now, I was so that Kingdom Hearts text came up on the screen. I was like, "Go on, just show the same fucking trailer again. I dare you. I dare you." It'll be like the fourth time so far. Just like they're hitting but they didn't. They showed a weirdly like. I thought it looked weird. The Pirates of the Caribbean stuff in that game with the sort of uncanny valley faces that was employed, like with all the characters from the movies, and it looked like that sort of Orlando Bloom, but not quite. Keira Knightley, but just a bit off. Everything looks a bit strange, and that game is still failing to excite me in any way. But hey, you know, sure. I don't know what to say about that, but there you go.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add. So we've talked about it a bit already anyway. So
the next game I want to talk about is interesting because immediately, as soon as it started showing footage, I looked at it and I went, holy shit, that looks a lot like Quantum Break in the way those powers are being used, in the character design and the models. That looks a lot like a Remedy game. And lo and behold, Control is the next game from Remedy. And it definitely seems to be building on the tech and the sort of ability set they seem to have like worked on for Quantum Break. You played Quantum Break, didn't you, Joel?
No. Honestly, you should just get someone. You should get someone else. Actually,
if I said this to Richard, we'll talk about that. I look forward to talking about this with Richard because I think one of the things he was really looking forward to a Remedy game. It was one of his predictions, and he was hoping for Alan Wake 2. Instead, we've got this Control. It's not exclusive. This one, I don't believe, to PS4. I believe this is a multi-platformy job, but obviously shown off and announced at PlayStation, which is obviously signifying that Remedy have now multi-platform, and you know they're no longer just under the Xbox umbrella, which is a real shame in my opinion, because you know Quantum Break was a wicked game that just didn't reach the audience it deserved. So fair play that they've gone multi-platform and they are sort of seemingly building on this sort of combat and stuff. We don't know much more about the game, the setting, anything like that, but I thought the combat looked really, really good. The graphics looked lovely. The destructibility of the environments looked really, really interesting as well. What did you think of Control?
Yeah, look nice. I've got some notes. Got some real Escher Inception vibes from just what I saw. And yeah, it was pretty short. It was a bit because obviously a lot of the other trailers they showed. Oh, I say that they showed some pretty long. The 4 big ones they showed a lot of gameplay. Yeah, and then there's some of the ones dispersed in between. There wasn't that much, but yeah, it looks nice. Keep an eye on that one.
Remedy is always worth checking out, man. Always. You should go back and play Quantum Break.
You know, I wanted to. I was convinced it was on Game Pass, but it wasn't, which was a bit. I was a bit upset about.
Well, maybe, send an email to Microsoft. I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know.
Tweet old Phil Spencer.
Tweet Phil. We also got a big reveal. Again, this is multi-platform as well, and this was quite cool. It's been long rumored to have been worked on, but to be honest, how different this game is from the original looks like the amount of work gone into it is probably on par with just making an entirely new game, and that's Resident Evil 2. It looks like behind the shoulder RE4, RE5. RE6 style gameplay, but for Resident Evil fucking 2. I was amazed. Like it looked terrifying, and it's probably probably the most sort of remembered Resident Evil game in a way because it introduces the wider Raccoon City plots. It brings in Leon. You know, it has all these big elements that the zombie, virus and all this sort of stuff really going on a much wider scale. It's probably the Resident Evil game that had the biggest influence on the franchise. So I think I'm really looking forward to playing through that story and some of those encounters, but with a very different take and a very different style of gameplay. It looks fabulous. I was blown away, and it's like really soon, isn't it? What's the date on it?
Jan 15th.
Yeah, that's no time. That's crazy. That is crazy. What did you think? I mean, are you a Biohazard Resident Evil guy? Or
the funny thing is though, yes, I am, because I had both Resident Evil and Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation, but I always preferred the first one. I always thought the first one I thought the setting was a bit more chilling. It had those sort of more tension-based horror vibes. And just the discovery, you start off in a mansion and it's just a few little zombies, but then you go out into the garden and and then things get all a bit weird. So I was always a bigger fan of the first game. I thought the second one was, it wasn't bad, but it didn't feel as good as the. I'm just trying to think of the best way for me to sort of angle this.
I could sort of see where you're
coming
coming
from. It seems that I'm in the minority. I think a lot of people really thought Resident Evil 2 was the better of the titles.
I think impact on the franchise, other than one obviously being the first one, 2 has a lot of influence and introductions of elements and characters that carry over through the franchise more than the elements of 1, in gameplay and style and things like that. That kind of haunted house feel to 1, you don't really get that again until the newest one, so it's still 7. So I think, what do you think of how the direction they're taking it though? This isn't a remaster. This isn't an HD remaster. This is a full remake. Like, an incredible amount of work must have gone into that game.
Looks impressive. I will probably. I was a big fan of 4, big fan of 5. I didn't like 6 much, and 7 I'm too scared to play properly.
I'm considering getting it for VR, but I might shit my pants.
They've got a 1-hour demo you could download. Get that. It's like the first hour. If you could get past that, you might be all right.
Doom is scary enough. I mean, I've got a big gun in Doom, but don't know. And the other little one I've got on my notes, but tell me in a second if I've missed any, is Trover Saves the Universe, which is the one of the creators of Rick and Morty, Justin Roiland, who's actually really quite prolific in video games. He seems to really be wanting to break out into this medium, and this is another one of those which is going to have VR support as well. And it seems to be an action platforming game with their sort of weird form of humor, which is based around improv, which is strange enough in an animation and even weirder in a video game setting, because it's all that kind of weird, when the characters sort of just like riff and sort of peter out almost because they just run out of things to say and think of. It's hard to describe if you've never seen a Rick and Morty episode, but the trailer for this conveys it quite well with the weird dude in the bathtub, which I thought was very strange. I really like Rick and Morty, first 2 seasons. It's a show that's now been picked up for a lot more episodes, but sadly it's got a fan base that really puts me off of it now. It's so toxic and awful, the people that are obsessive about that show. So, and there's an incredible amount of gatekeeping around it as well. It's just very, very strange, the people that are fans of that. So that's soured me. So it's cool to see the creator, Justin Roiland, going and doing something else, because he's got a fantastic sense of humor. So I'm quite excited about that. I'm quite up for a VR game now by those guys. They've done a Rick and Morty one, haven't they? But I'd be up for something different. Yeah. What did you think of it? I've
watched a few Rick and Mortys. I've tried to get into it. It's just not my type of comedy. I don't.
You know what that is, don't you, Joe? It's because you're not smart enough.
You're
just not smart enough to understand Rick and Morty and understand the humor. That's an example of the gatekeeping that the fan base likes to employ on a regular basis.
In which case, I'm quite happy. Maybe I'm not.
So basically, if you say something you don't like Rick and Morty, they just say, "Oh, you must be because you're stupid." Oh,
it's dropped at birth.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, this isn't. It doesn't really. It may turn out to be a fantastic game. Push that.
Didn't you think the guy in the bathtub electrocuting himself was funny?
Not really. I just sort of sat and watched it. I think the funniest bit with it, where at one point I think he was literally just saying, it might as well have just said, "Look, it's a shitty platforming game in the bathtub." What I read is what he was saying, and that kind of made me laugh slightly, taking the piss out of your own creativity in some senses. But it's not my kind of thing, not on the radar. If it suddenly launches and gets 10s in all the major sort of media, then I'll maybe take another look at it. But
did I miss anything?
Nothing really worth talking about. I mean, Destiny 2, there was a really crappy cinematic trailer that who cares? Call of Duty Black Ops 3 announcing 4 maps. They're going to sell you more maps that they already made remastered. So if you haven't given them enough money already, there you go. You can give them some more. So you can buy the same shit again. And on the quick recapping, they did fire off the Tetris VR game. I can't remember the name. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Days Gone, Twin Mirror, Ghost Hunt VR game, and Beat Saber, which looked, I thought, quite cool.
Beat Saber is meant to be a fantastic VR game. It's all about hitting boxes with laser swords to rhythm. So
another rhythm sync really game, basically, isn't it? So I thought the Tetris game Beat Saber looked pretty standout. So, but yeah, that's it. That was all they showed.
So what did you think in general? I thought it was a bit of a weird one.
Certainly a very weird. Oh, sorry. They also announced Neo 2, didn't they?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they did.
But overall, what I did like very much was for the 4 big games, the way they went about doing it. They just some cinematics, but lots of just sort of a 5-minute vertical slice of gameplay, basically. Just sit and watch us play. Give you a real good feel of what these games are going to be about, I think. And yeah, that's what I preferred. I thought there was some definitely quality over quantity on the Sony stand. We're all tied together by what looked like they got their children to organize it, because it didn't really flow, did it? But
yeah, it was, and it felt awkward, and there was vamping, and the guys just trying to desperately fill for time. When it threw back to them at the sort of weird counter they were all sat behind, it just felt like you could have probably maybe worked on this a tiny bit more to make sure it was going to go off. But hey, that's fine. None of these conferences have been perfect, that's for sure. But yes, so I thought it was fine. It was fine. Should we move to the last conference? Though it's kind of not a conference, the Nintendo Direct. So this was, oh wow, this was a weird one. Front loaded with announcements, and then a thing at the end that never ended. So we had Xenoblade Chronicles 2 DLC at the top, and I was like, sure. I mean, do we care about that? I not particularly.
A lot of friends who really enjoy the Xenoblade Chronicles games. They're just massive, like huge investment of time. Basically, that's the only reason I'm nervous of going into them.
No, that's fair enough. Huge sort of open world JRPGs, aren't they? Yeah. Then we had Super Mario Party on the Switch. Finally, God, it took long enough. I've been clamoring not to play this game.
That part where they put 2 switches together and it looked like they could choose the orientation as they were trying to make that map to play on, and then they settled on it, drew the line across the screens, and then the gameplay was actually playing across both screens. It was like some sort of top-down looking tank battler or something. It looked like, and I was just like, "Oh, tech-wise, that's awesome. If that works as well as they showed there, how cool is that?"
That is very cool. However, you need multiple fucking switches to do it, which seems a tad excessive.
Well, you say that, but I think I've got more friends with Switches than I have any. Virtually all my friends, I think, have them. Only a couple who don't. As opposed to not many of my friends have Xboxes or PlayStations anymore. So
okay, no, that's fair enough. That is fair enough, I suppose, when you put it like that. I've never been into the Mario Party board game, mini game hybrid thing that is. It always seems like extreme tedium, like really, really tedious. But maybe this time all the mini games are going to be amazing. I suppose it's possible.
I think some of them will be genuine gold. Some of them will be not as fun as others. They're always like that. It's always a mixed bag. But generally, if you play them with mates, you have a few drinks and stuff, they can be a real good laugh.
However, we did get a reveal trailer for a game I've never heard of, which I believe is completely new, that looked badass, and that was Daemon X Machina, which seems to be this cel-shaded mech combat, fucking bit like Armored Core type mechs flying around, doing lots of fighting and looking loads of explosions and sword attacks. It looked really cool. If you're going to watch any trailer from this Direct, I would recommend checking that out. It seems like a lot of fun on the, cool that we can get that on the Switch.
That's what they opened with. I thought it was brilliant. It looked really, really fast paced, lots of action. Graphically, it was like the mechs looked like they were really, high res textures, really detailed and stuff. But then it's all coupled with this sort of shell shaded style.
Easy for you to say.
It's been a long 4 days.
It has.
Style sort of smoke and explosions and sort of stuff around it. I thought the art styling looked really cool.
Yeah. I'd be curious to see how it handles on the Switch. Maybe there's going to be some motion control in there, that sort of thing. You know, maybe we can really slash with the Joy-Con.
Why does everyone want motion controls? Why does everyone want motion controls?
I don't know. I just feel like it's the kind of game where they're going to shoehorn them in. I didn't say I wanted it. I just think it's going to be there.
I hate motion controls. I'm so glad when the game lets you turn them off.
You say that, but you like VR, and that's all motion controls.
A bit, yeah, that's different.
Oh yeah, it's different. It's not like on PlayStation, you're actually using repurposed motion controllers. That you know, the exact same. But anyway,
You're not accusing Sony of cheaping out on hardware.
No. Yes. However, I'm not complaining because I got it really cheap. So next one up, Overcooked 2. As rumored, it is real. It is coming. More Overcooked can only be a good thing. Absolutely fantastic couch co-op experience in Overcooked 1. If you've not played it, Joel?
I have played Overcooked.
Hey! I knew we'd get there eventually. Not a AAA, no AAA games, no big releases, but a weird little indie game. Joel's played it. So yeah, I knew we'd get there eventually. Happy. It took 4 days, 600 press conferences, but Joel has played a game. Yeah, so that looks good, doesn't it? I mean, it looked like the same formula, more levels.
Yep.
You can throw food around now and stuff like that. Is what you're saying, can't you? You can chuck it to people. That's what he said. So I don't know. Enough innovation, but more of the same, please. Lots of fun. We then got Fortnite, which is out right now. You can play Fortnite on your Switch immediately. And I think the most interesting thing to take away from this is that it's just Fortnite. There's no mention of Battle Royale as there used to be, because they used to on the consoles, the other console release on the PC, they mentioned the free version with that sort of tag to differentiate it from the weird, I don't know, base defense version that the game spun off from. But now it's just, according to the Switch, it's just Fortnite. So I think that's that says a lot about that mode that's going to be gone.
Because yeah, I didn't spot that.
It's Fortnite. I'm probably going to download it on my Switch because why not? That actually might be a good experience. That kind of battle royale, cartoony battle royale on my Switch. I feel like that makes sense.
Whilst trying to catch up on I didn't watch the Nintendo Direct live. So when I got home from work, I was trying to catch up on it. But it just so happened like you tune in live and you rewind to get back to the start of the thing, and they were just playing Fortnite to show it on the Switch. And God, the presenters sucked. They like literally dropped in, and both of them got gagged by this guy. So he had a gun, and he got ganked by this other random person with an axe. So both of them, there were 2 of them versus this one guy with an axe, and they both got taken out. Like it's quite funny.
Embarrassing.
Because I believe the way they were describing it is that it's when you join a server, you're just playing against anyone else. So they were saying that people here again on mobile and stuff like that. I think
mobile, PC, Xbox, and Switch all play together, I believe. Next one though. I really like this. I have been waiting for this announcement. I'm very happy to see Fire Emblem 3 Houses appearing on the Switch. And they seem to have done a pretty good job of kind of trying to convey the sort of small tactics RPG elements, but like blow it up a little bit. So you still seem to be giving orders to like single units, but when they go into combat, it zooms in, shows like their full unit strength. And then in a kind of like canned RTS sort of rush, they'll attack each other, so it has a bit more of a cinematic console flair to it, rather than the slightly sort of more pixel arty sort of stuff that you have had on the handhelds that it's been on previously, like the 3DS. But if it has that strategy mixed with great characters and sort of the legacy aspects of Fire Emblem, where you kind of create relationship bonds that have children, and then they become sort of these new types of units and new classes that then have different relationships in with the existing ones, and it's this huge web of interconnected relationships which all affect combat and stuff like that. Fire Emblem is a brilliantly deep and engaging sort of action tactics game. Really, really, really good game Fire Emblem games are. So I'm very excited to see that coming to the Switch. Did we get any kind of date window?
Spring 2019.
That's not even that. That's not that long. That's not that long.
I'm glad they put spring, because is it February next year, which is literally you might as well take the month off or just Like,
So there's about
start saving for it now.
4 big releases in February, something like that, and then a couple of big ones in March as well. Because Division 2's in March, and then like February's got like fucking Metro and what else? It's all blurring together, mate. I can't remember.
I'll have to go back. I've got 15 pages of notes. I'll try and maybe go back through and.
I could look through all my show notes that I've put up, but I probably won't.
Undoubtedly, some of those will change. They can't all.
They've got to. There's got to be some slippage, isn't there? There's got to be some movement around.
I think they'll probably all be ready, but I think they'll just hold the games back and try and slot them out in quieter times. They don't want to all release at the same time.
We then got an announcement for. I believe this game was like a big sort of like arcade hit, like recently, like an indie arcade hit. I remember them talking about it at PAX's 2 years ago, which is Killer Queen, and this is black. As in the black version of that, I suppose they gave it a different name, subtitle to differentiate it on the Switch, and that's kind of like a frantic multiplayer experience, I guess. I'm not sure how it. I mean, one of the elements of it in playing the arcade, it was all about being physically against your opponents. So I'm not sure how that's going to play on the Switch, but we'll see how that works out. And then Hollow Knight is coming to the Switch, and it's there today.
Yeah,
it's meant to be very good. I have yet to play Hollow Knight, but I might pick it up on the Switch. That might be worth checking out. Actually, it's got a great art style. I've heard it's very hard though. So, one game I am looking forward to that's coming up quite soon is Octopath Traveler, which I believe was shown at Squeenix's show as well last night or the night before. I can't even remember anymore. And it's got this. It's kind of this strange pixel art sepia art style with a fairly kind of pullback isometric view, but at the same time it has quite classical JRPG leanings, but lots of really good character dialogue. There's 2 demos available now, I think, on the Switch prior to the game even coming out, so you can definitely get into that and have a look. But it's a really interesting sort of Japanese cultural kind of very old school, very inspired by old school RPGs, but with lots of modern sensibilities and production design. So I think it might be worth checking out. It does seem quite unique. And I did play some of the first demo. I played some of it, and I thought
I was going to say, I think the demos. They said demos available middle of this month, and it releases July 13th. So
yeah, it's not long. No, and the progress carries over from the demo, which is pretty cool when they do that.
That's
sort of thing.
That's nice, yeah.
And then we got the biggest, deepest dive yet at one of these conferences, and it was Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. It's ultimate because it consists of every previous Smash Brother character is in this game, which I think is an easy way of them not having to come up with new ones, frankly. But that's fine. I guess, 60 odd characters to choose from. That will be unlocked as you progress. But mate, this went on for like 25 minutes. And I was so bored. Like, first of all, it went through all the characters got revealed, and then it went through like, here's all the characters' different powers and abilities, and then all the stages, and then it kind of did like a tutorial thing of like, here's how the new combat's going to work and new combat elements. It was the most boring presentation of what should be a very fun game. I mean, I am not a big Smash Brothers fan, Joel, but this just made me fall asleep. I was just looking at my phone, looking up every so often, going, "Is it still going?" Oh, okay. They didn't even have anything to announce because it's all the old characters. I think the only new characters are Inkling characters from Splatoon. So it was kind of like, wow, this is just stuff we've all seen before. Yeah, it's great that this character's last time was in a Smash Brothers game 10 years ago, and that you brought him back, like in the case of Snake. But it didn't need 25 minutes. It really didn't. It's a game series that's been around forever, and the formula hasn't really changed. So it was mystifying why they did that. What did you think of all of it?
So I'm a big Smash Brothers fan.
All right. So as a big fan, did it speak to you?
I didn't need to, or I like you say, I know what the formula is. Yeah, fan. It's got a great character roster. It doesn't matter. I'm only going to play as the same couple of characters that I always play as anyway. And yeah, I will get it, and I will play it, and I will enjoy it multiplayer. Hopefully, me and my brother have a long-standing rivalry on this game that goes back all the way to the N64 version of it, where we used to. I remember sessions on the GameCube one when we were at university and stuff, where you'd literally start the game and we would be hitting and blocking with such perfection. It'd be like minutes before there was any damage dealt to either or. We were seriously reached high mastery levels of that game. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I've never been a big fan of fighting games. I've never really managed to get into them. Mortal Kombat a little bit. What I don't like fast-paced combos on controllers and stuff. And Smash Brothers had like the most accessible controls for a fighting game that just allowed you to work on strategy. You didn't have to worry about sort of down, back, left, right, forward, punch to execute a move. It was just literally push a direction on the joystick and it would do it. And if you slam the joystick and press a button, that was it. That would just do your power moves. It was, yeah, perfection. So I'm looking forward to this. But yeah, I agree with you. Well, to be honest, I always knew that they were going to do a large focus on Smash Brothers at this. 25 minutes is like certainly over baking the cake by quite a long shot. They didn't really need to do that. But
what excited you? What caught your eye?
It's just Smash Brothers, because some of the playing it on the Switch, playing it on the Move. I just love the game. So it's kind of I know and I trust it will be a good fighting game. So, and to be honest, I skipped a large amount of the long 25 minutes because as soon as I saw it, I watched a little bit and I didn't need to.
Who the fuck was this video for then? Like, if it's not for me, i.e. the barely cares about, if it's not to sell the concept to me and it's not there to explain all the amazing new benefits to the hardcore, then who the fuck is that for? What were they thinking? Well, it's not, but you're the fan. You're the fan.
Sorry, what did you say this video
you said
for?
No, what was it for? This the video. Yeah, what was this 25 minutes of?
Oh, I don't know. And you know what I don't know is because just before it, they showed I tried to write the names down because it was very fast sequence of various games with release dates, and I didn't get any of the release dates. But had Arena of Valor, Minecraft, Mario vs Rabbids, the Donkey Kong add-on, the Just Dance, Captain Toad's coming out, Crash Bandicoot. I probably spelt that one wrong, but I've got like Ninjala. Carcassonne, they got FIFA 18, FIFA 19, Ark Survival Evolved is coming, Wasteland 2, Paladins, Fallout Shelter, Dark Souls Remastered, Monster Hunter, Wolfenstein 2, Mega Man 11, Mario Ace Tennis. I was surprised they didn't show more of that actually as well. And then so they reeled through all of those in about a minute, and then spent 45 minutes. I didn't watch it all, but 45 minutes on Smash Brothers, whereas it might have been better if they just took the time showing some of the other games. I agree.
Well, I mean, everything you just listed off is a port. So
yeah, it's a port, but still, that's a lot of it's a lot of games. And considering everyone else's shows are just sequels or remasters, you can't.
Yeah, but they're not ports of games that have been out for years. I mean, it's like that's why they didn't spend time on them.
Yeah. So ports of Captain Toad's a good example. That's a really good game. But
isn't that a port of a Wii U game?
Yeah, it's a port of a Wii U game that not many people played Wii U games.
Yeah, but it's a game that came out 4 years ago then.
So
it's like, who cares? Like, who cares about Wolfenstein 2 and stuff like that? I mean, that's why it was a crappy montage. I see what you're saying though. When it's just like, couldn't you given us a bit more Octopath Traveler? Couldn't you given us a bit more of Hollow Knight, even though that's a port, more Fire Emblem, more Overcooked 2, anything like 25 minutes, or just do 10 minutes, not, and then just cut it. Like,
not a surprise,
Square Enix, that you don't need to do super long shows if you don't have the content.
Didn't mention the Labo either. I really thought they would show some sort of next cardboard accessories for that.
There isn't. Yeah. I mean, that was it. There won't be. I think that was it. Like, they brought out what they're going to bring out for that. I think it was a fun experiment. It probably didn't cost them that much money. Would you be clamoring for more cardboard?
I don't know. I'm waiting for my son to get a little bit older because I think we could have a bit. I know we will have fun with it. We will build it and we'll play with it, but we would probably only play with it for about 10 or 15 minutes, if you know what I mean. It's not. We'll have it'll be a good fun hour coloring it in, playing with the cardboard, playing the game. But yeah, it's not the kind of. I don't see longevity in it. But for that reason, having more cardboard bits come out, which in theory could be cheap, would be quite attractive potentially. Some different designs and stuff, but they also have a design lab, isn't it? You can create your own ideas and upload them, I think, and stuff like that. So I'm surprised they didn't talk about that at all. But they've got their treehouse thing going on for the next day or two, haven't they? So maybe there'll be some stuff in there. But
there's stuff coming out all the time. I mean, we've just been covering the conferences in this. What I think we'll do, I'm not sure if we're recording Saturday or Sunday yet, but I imagine we should all chip in, see what catches our eyes, as it were, between the three of us, and have a chat about it all when we reconvene at the weekend. But that does mean, well, all right, just quickly then, as I've said, we're coming to the end here. But final thoughts on Nintendo?
Yeah, they've got some good stuff in there. There was some. I think there's a little bit of something for everyone. Yeah, sure, some of it's all ports and stuff, but it was all right. It wasn't too bad.
I just think they misjudged their final segment, didn't they?
Yeah,
the final bit, because it meant it lost momentum and it felt like it dragged at the end there. And if you cut 15 minutes off of that, you wouldn't really have lost anything. So it could have
every year though, don't they? They seem to now be going for this. Every year they'll talk a bit about other games, but the whole show is going to be specially focused around one of them, isn't it? They did. Would have been Zelda 2 years ago, wouldn't it?
What was last year? Do you know what? We didn't get any Metroid
last year.
Was it Splatoon? Maybe.
I don't know. Or was it? I'm trying to think. It might have been Zelda last year because there was one time where they basically. When did Zelda release?
It's a while back now, mate. I think.
I think it was 2 years ago, nearly.
That makes sense. I mean, we didn't get any Metroid though, did we?
Not yet.
And a little bit of an allusion at the beginning to Pokemon from Reggie. Talking about the Pikachu and Eevee games that are coming. I just want the real Pokemon game, to be honest, though. I'd be quite up for playing that. Yeah, so that was Nintendo. I thought it was fine. I thought Sony was fine. Let's do a quick recap then. I thought Sony was fine. I thought, it had some problems. Nintendo was fine. Square Enix was completely pointless. Didn't need to happen. Just show those games at other conferences. Don't know why they decided to have a half an hour slot for anything. Absolutely mystifying that. I thought Ubisoft was good in its quirky way, as always. I thought Bethesda was very good and really enjoyed Bethesda's one a lot. It felt like it talked to the gamers probably the best. But I think, to be honest, the winner, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, is Xbox this year. I thought that had the most interesting and diverse lineup of games, had the biggest announcements in many ways, biggest reveals, like really, really showing the strength of the platform going into the future. So I really enjoyed Xbox's one. Am I forgetting any? Am I forgetting one?
EA was the only other
EA. One. Yeah, that wasn't great. No, EA was quite forgettable, it turns out.
Same.
What about you, Joel?
So yeah, EA the same as every year. Anthem didn't really light me up. I think everyone was a bit hyped to see what would happen next. It didn't do enough to distinguish itself from Destiny for me at the moment. Lots of time for it to change, but that's the impression I got. But yeah, Battlefield V or 5, we're still not quite sure. Yeah, it's nice to see some destruction back and things like that. Looks quite interesting. We're still they're leading into Microsoft where they were going to show more of Battlefield 5 and that being that story, which turned out to be an extra 10 seconds of footage. I still think that almost wins the whole show hands down. What the hell? What was even the point? Microsoft's show I enjoyed. There was a lot of stuff there. It was just all really quick fire, actually, and I think Sony puts into perspective in some cases how just giving you some. I would have much rather seen some real big sort of times, some nice like 5-minute long gameplay sections from some of the real highlights of the Xbox show. Or why don't they do a big 4 and show you a lot of those? I would have really liked that. But they certainly, I think what they're trying to go out is to try and. I think they wanted to squash any rumors that Microsoft are going to consider pulling out of the gaming market, the console market. That I think they tried to really put the message out. No, we're here to stay. We're investing big style in it. So don't think we're going anywhere. And I think they've certainly proved that they've got a roadmap going forwards and lots of stuff coming along the lines. So that was quite good. Bethesda, I think as for the presentation, Bethesda's just really resonated. I think, yeah, it was just like you say, what's his name, Todd on stage was, especially as a software engineer guy as well. Yeah, so surprisingly good. And that fucking sorry, pardon my French. That Skyrim very special edition segment was, yeah, that's they listen to their community. They listen to the good and the bad. That was really good. Bit of a, like a bit of a shame that, a lot of what they've got is not necessarily new stuff. Again, it's still sequels and stuff, and the sort of they talked about Starfield as the first original franchise they've come up with in 25 years. Yeah, that was like 10 seconds of ambiguous footage that could be anything. I haven't really got anything to say about Square Enix. Didn't really watch it. Didn't excite me. Ubisoft, yeah, it was quite a fun show. They're obviously very passionate, and like you say, I think they do really get that family vibe across, don't they?
Yeah.
I think their highlight was definitely Beyond Good and Evil 2. That looked quite. I think they've gone all out. That as I know it was mostly cinematic with a little bit of gameplay, but it certainly looked quite interesting. A lot of people quite excited. And yeah, Sony, I thought The Last of Us Part 2, really, that's sticking in my mind. That's, I think, almost the most interesting one I think I've seen all show. I really liked that little segment. And yeah, Nintendo was just Nintendo doing what Nintendo do.
More Nintendo is probably never a bad thing, really, is it? I mean, there's some stuff in there. Fire Emblem and stuff really excited me. I really, really want Fire Emblem to go on my Switch. I'm really excited about that. I'm sorry to throw. Okay, come on then. Game, standout game. Pick one. Think you're going to go Last of Us 2?
I think so. I thought that I want to slightly caveat it with, like, yeah, if that's genuinely how that game plays, and if it gives you feel like you're playing the game with that much freedom, and it feels that cinematic, I think that'll be like that's going to raise the bar basically for what people will have to do next.
No, that's a fair show.
Like you say, if they've just cherry picked and if they played through that 100 times and just picked the one that looked the best, then that'll be a bit disappointing. But yeah, at the moment, that's the one I'm like sitting here. Immediately, my first thought today was like, shit, I want to go home and play The Last of Us again. So
always worth doing. Absolutely amazing game. Cool. So mine is still that same toss up between two that I had the other night, which is either Cyberpunk 2077 or Doom Eternal. I think I'm gonna have to go for Doom Eternal though. I just because of how much I love that first game. I'm so excited for QuakeCon. I think we're getting it. I don't know. I think we're getting it next year. I think we'll get it like at decent time next year. I can't wait to see what they show, how it's going to be different in August and stuff like that. That's got me the most excited. But then it's like I look at Cyberpunk and I think, well, the game that I'm going to lose the most hours to, probably Cyberpunk 2077. I'm just going to fall into that hole and never come back out. And I'm really looking forward to that as well. So I think it's been a pretty good E3 conference wise. It's definitely, what do you think, better than last year's?
Trying to think. So last year there was a, kind of, I think so. Yes. I think I have, this one has felt better to me than last year's. I'm a bit, I will still want to go back and watch last year's Microsoft press conference again, because they've played a lot of games last year, and I'm convinced that less than half of them were ever released and were not spoken of again, even at this one. So
there was a lot of indie games that still haven't appeared. Absolutely, there were a lot. Yeah. The other thing you have to remember as well is you may be conflating announcements from E3 and Gamescom, because Microsoft are the only ones that do both. So it's sometimes I've found, I'm sure that thing got announced in E3. Oh no, it's actually Gamescom. So if you think about timelines, it's not as egregious as a sort of just an egregious something, a title being missing, so words, mate. Oh my god, so tired. Right, I think this is where we draw it to a close then for our post-conference wrap-ups. It's been a journey. I'm glad you've been with me on it, Joel. I couldn't have done it without you, buddy.
Committed as always. I have so much free time because I don't play games. I can
so what makes you an expert? You're like, you're coming at the gaming hobby and the gaming passion without any knowledge of it, which means you're like a baby, freshly born, just innocent and pure. And that's why you were so blown away by The Last of Us, due to its incredible darkness. Oh my God, so bleak. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a good round of conferences. I'm trying to think. I think it was better than last year's. I do. I think there was more underwhelmingness last year, especially from the big shows. There does seem to have been a bit more of sequelitis this year from certain publishers, but I think that's got probably a lot to do with where we're at in the console generation. So you know, we'll see how those things pan out. I imagine next year we'll be hearing about a lot more to do with the next generation. So that will be exciting as always. But I look forward to our coming all together. The three of us. Richard will be joining us at the weekend at some point. And we'll talk about highlights and lowlights and get his take on the conferences as well, and see what he thinks about all of that. And you know, any other news that's going to come out from the various streams and the show floor, which I believe I don't think it opens until tomorrow. I think, is it open tomorrow?
Opens tomorrow. So
that hasn't even happened yet, people. So there's going to be plenty more shit coming out.
Or is it technically today? Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I think it might be today,
okay.
US time, obviously. So I think it might have just opened within the last couple of hours.
All right. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and making notes so we can talk about it all at the weekend. So once again, thank you for joining us. It's been fun, if not exhausting. And I'm going to post this, and then Joel's got a review to come up, and Richard's going to have a review, and I've got to do a review as well tomorrow. So it's not like we're stopping. Not taking a break here at Bxb'S. That's not how we roll. So from me, Ben, I say good night until very soon.
And I guess from me, Joel, if you've managed to listen to me and Ben talk all 4 episodes of me and Ben talking shit, then fair play, respect.
It's about 5 hours of podcasting in the last 4 days, something like that, 5 or 6 hours. So that's a lot. That's a lot. Well done to you, and well done to us. Good night.
Bye-bye.